Unfortunately for me, it was very much in my face. I couldn't hide from it, and I lived in fear for most of my life.
Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast in partnership with Kidney Care UK, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.
Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Dee Moore. This podcast shares real stories, expert insights, and honest conversations about life with kidney disease. In today's episode, I'm joined by Jamie, who's speaking with us from Texas in the United States. Jamie opens up about her personal journey of growing up with kidney disease as part of her family story and what it's like to live with that knowledge whilst holding on to hope, strength, and purpose. Before we begin, just a gentle reminder that this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Always seek guidance from your own healthcare team regarding your health. So wherever you're listening from today, I'm really glad you're here. Let's begin. Hi, and welcome to Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. How are you doing today, Jamie?
I am good. Excited to chat with you.
I am so excited to be speaking with you today. And everybody knows what I'm going to say because I say it every time, but I do sincerely mean it when I say I'm so excited to record a Kidney Warrior Story interview because, as I say every time, and it is so true, it is so powerful to learn from someone's lived experience with CKD. So I'm going to start with my first question. And my first question is, how did your kidney warrior journey begin and how were you diagnosed?
Well, I have ADPKD. So I've known pretty much my whole life that this was something I could potentially get. My great-great-grandmother had it. My grandmother passed away when I was 13 from it. And then my mother passed away when I was 23. I was with her when it happened from a brain aneurysm, which apparently I think there's something like 10% of people can get brain aneurysms from polycystic kidney disease. So unfortunately for me, it was very much in my face. I couldn't hide from it. And I lived in fear for most of my life because it doesn't usually affect you until you're older. So I actually looked up, because I'm a teacher in me, I had to look up the statistics. In my family, because it moved through so many generations in a row, I guess it said statistically there was a 12.5% chance for it to hit 4 generations in a row. So that's a pretty low amount. But the good news is that it stopped with me. My 2 children do not have it, but I didn't really understand it. I was born in 1970, so I was 13 and I didn't live near my grandmother, but I was able to see her a few times when I saw her. And all I associated with it was her abdomen was extremely distended. Now I understand much more about that. It was very scary to me, especially being with my mother when she passed away. And my mother refused to find out if she had it. So when she was in the hospital, when they were running tests and everything, my father, who's a doctor, actually asked them to do an ultrasound. He had a feeling that it had been progressively, going to affect her. And she did have it. So I found out my mom did have it for sure then. And I just didn't want to find. I don't know. I wanted to live. At that point, I thought ignorance was bliss. I didn't want to know because there wasn't really anything I could do about it. I just knew I could be as healthy as possible, drink my water, and watch certain protein intake. That's all we knew in 1993. And so, but I ended up in the hospital one day in 1995. It ended up being this ovarian cyst. And while they were looking, I have a feeling this might have been before HIPAA because they were able to do this. I said, just tell me, just look at my kidneys. Do I have cysts on them? And they did, and they saw them. And so that's when I found out. And I just was like, great. Now I get to live in fear of another thing, just knowing for sure that I had it. So I was 25 when I found out that I had it that way. And they probably weren't supposed to tell me that, but they did. So I'm thinking it was before tech because now they're not allowed to do those kinds of things.
So rewinding slightly, you mentioned that you had ADPKD. So for those who don't know what ADPKD is, could you please explain what it is?
Okay, so PKD is polycystic kidney disease, and it's one of the most common genetic causes of kidney failure. And when I learned that, it kind of blew me away because I don't anyone I ever talk to about it, even to this day, doesn't barely knows what it is. But ADPKD is the autosomal dominant PKD, which is the type I have, which is because it's genetically passed through and it affects roughly one in every 400 to 1,000 people worldwide. So it's, and it says here why people don't know about it. Because as I know, this kidney disease is a silent one. And so up to 90% of people with early kidney disease, hello, this might sound familiar to you, don't know that they have it because symptoms often don't show up until it's super advanced. So there are a lot of people, again, if you didn't, I know people who have been diagnosed, all of a sudden they just went to a doctor in their 40s and they found out that they had cysts all over their kidneys. So, I mean, maybe that would have been a better way to go rather than being afraid my whole life. But for me, I was born with it. If you had looked at my kidneys when I was pretty little, for me, I had the one where I'm born with it. The cysts are there and they just kind of don't start growing and really impact you until, for most people, in their 40s. I think my great grandmother never had any sort of issues whatsoever. So I kind of was always hoping, like, maybe I'll be the one that it doesn't do anything.
So for someone like yourself, you've got a whole family history of PKD. There was that awareness, and you spoke about the fear after seeing it take the life of a family member that could possibly happen to you. So when you got the diagnosis, did that make you even more fearful? Or, I mean, what were you thinking at that time?
Yeah, no, I was absolutely terrified. I was pretty much convinced after watching my mom pass away that I don't know why I picked this number, but I didn't think I'd live past 40. Somehow that was my death sentence in my brain. And I started to go to therapy because I had, besides my mom passing away, there were I was in a car accident, but other things that kind of got me to a point where my anxiety was just awful. And again, I don't know what's bad. I don't think it's bad. I don't know. I wish I didn't know that I had that because just every year being afraid of going and getting, labs, I'm sure anyone who has chronic illness, especially with kidney or liver disease, your labs are terrifying. Like the scariest thing that you can have done because you think about it up until then, you get the labs done, and then you live by those numbers. If it goes up at all, anything that changes, you just feel, and it's just, I think the scariest part is that I am such an advocate for myself and I take charge and I fix things and I want to have control over things. And there's no control over this at all. I just have to wait and see what's going to happen to my body. And that I think is probably one of the hardest things is, I had my husband at the time, we had a decision. Were we going to have children? Knowing that they had a 50% chance of having this. And of course we made the decision to, and thankfully we did. But yeah, it was terrifying. I've had medical anxiety for a very, very long time.
With the therapy that you had and the support that you were given to help you with your anxiety and what you were experiencing, what have you learned that you could possibly share with listeners who may be in a similar position where they have PKD or a form of kidney disease that they know is going to decline in terms of coping with that?
I tell everyone, go to therapy, find a good therapist. If you go to a therapist and it's not feeling right, fine. I don't know how much option and choice you have there, but I think therapy is just incredible. I mean, I've been going my whole life. My kids go, they love it. They always find a therapist wherever they live. They just know that it's healthy. I mean, we do everything to take care of our bodies. Why is there such stigma around mental health? Like, I know that's a whole other thing we could talk about, but I am an advocate for that. Your mental health is what gets you through all of this because you can work on that part.
So you got your diagnosis age 25. Did your life change in any way? Were you experiencing any kind of symptoms or any change in your health with your kidneys, or did life stay the same at this point?
When I had my children, both were induced 2 weeks early because one of the first things that they knew about and knew to look out for was blood pressure. So when your kidneys start declining, your blood pressure goes up. So when I was 29, and that was when I had my first child, I started to go on blood pressure medicine more as a preventative, I think, than anything at that point. Because I don't know, 30 years ago, that was kind of all they knew what to do to start to try and keep me healthy. Other than, I mean, I was an athlete my whole life. So I've always exercised and I eat well. But when I had both of my kids, they had to be induced 2 weeks early because my blood pressure got high. So that was really the first time that I saw an effect of my kidneys starting to have issues. But really, once I had my kids, I mean, everything went back. We always monitored. I had a nephrologist. I would do my labs. I don't even remember how often. But everything was just kind of the same. Everything everything seemed fine, and I probably had many more days of not thinking about it than not thinking about it than thinking about it. It just, I mean, I was able to raise my kids and, but I still had that weird obsession with thinking I wouldn't live past being 40. I mean, my mother was 47 when she passed away, so I'm not really sure where the 40 came from, but that was in my brain, always thinking to myself, I just want to live long enough to see my kids graduate high school. And if I could see them go to college and be a grandmother, that would be amazing. So I had a lot of thoughts like that. And so I just took the best care that I could of my body with all I knew what to do. I mean, at that point, I think they only told me, be careful about protein. Don't have, your kidneys, it's hard on your kidneys to break down, certain types of protein. So I've just always been, I mean, that's it. And drink a lot of water. There wasn't much I could do back then. I mean, I know now there are trials and there are some things, but yeah. So that was the only way that I really saw it affecting me, other than the looming kind of dark cloud over my head that I always had.
So when did things start to change? When did your kidney function decline?
So it was really interesting because I got divorced when I was 40. So it was around 40, when I was 44, 45-ish, I started to see my creatinine started going up and my EFGR started going down. I can't remember when I was last above, I sat in the 29, 30 EFGR range for a really long time. And my creatinine was probably 1.7, 1.8. And that's when I started to get really scared. Now, my aunt and uncle, my mother's brother and sister, have both had kidney transplants. So, they had gone through that. And again, they did those things a long time ago when it seemed really scary. And I just remember that my aunt just told me that just know that there's a really short window of time for you to get a transplant when that time comes, because you have to be sick enough to get listed, but you want to be healthy enough to not go on dialysis. And I didn't really understand that. So I just, again, had something else to worry about. But, what started happening to me also was that my abdomen started getting big, which I thought was my kidneys getting big. And I just didn't, and I could feel below my sternum, where my diaphragm was, when I would lay down, I felt all these weird bumps. Now, polycystic kidney disease, your kidneys get super cystic. So that kind of started happening. And I don't know if I was in denial, but I didn't really understand that until I moved here in 2020. Things had been definitely in my mid-40s, things started. And I thought it was my kidneys, didn't know exactly what I had coming.
So you were experiencing issues with your health and you thought it was your kidneys, but it wasn't your kidneys. But what was it?
Yeah, so I call myself the 1%er. If it only happens to 1% of the people, it's going to happen to me somehow, because I found out when I moved to Texas, when I went to go start seeing, because I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico for 16 years, and it's not a very big city. So, I mean, I had a nephrologist, but I'm just so grateful that I live here now, because in Austin, Texas and San Antonio, I mean, they have just amazing medical care. And I found out, and I can't even remember who the first person was, but when we did an MRI of my abdomen to see what was going on, I found out that I had polycystic liver disease. And that's what I was feeling. And that's why my abdomen was so gigantic, because my liver was, so a normal liver is 3 pounds. By the time I really found out what was going on, I think my liver was almost 24 pounds.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I looked like I was pregnant with triplets. I mean, think about that. My children weren't even 7 pounds when I had them. And luckily I'm 5'8". I have a very long torso. So it didn't, I mean, I looked pregnant. So it was that. And I was kind of just like, I didn't know anything about this because no one in my family had that, and immediately dove into that and trying to figure out. And the things that I really started experiencing in my late 40s was that, like, I'd bend over to like shave my legs, and I would lose I would have a hard time breathing, tying my shoes, those kinds of things, because I didn't realize, but it was my liver pressing on my diaphragm. I had issues with acid reflux because, again, my liver was pressing on everything. So it was pretty scary to realize what was really going on, and that I was having kidney failure, and then I had this liver. And so I was really faced with a lot. So I found out all of that probably in 2022 is when I really found all of that out.
So you now have an added complication of being in liver failure on top of what you were already experiencing with your PKD. I'm aware that for some patients who need 2 organs to be transplanted, that this needs to be done at the same time, both transplants. So was this the case for you, or were you able to have your transplants separately?
So yeah, so I was listed for both at the same time, but I didn't want to do that. I was too afraid. So luckily I spoke with my doctor, and we both agreed that my kidneys were holding on enough at that point to be able to just do the liver, and then we would see. And I remember looking at him and saying, but if my kidneys really like tank, when I can have that transplant at any time, right? Like, I needed to know that. He said, yeah. I mean, even if it happened a week later. So I knew going into it, I was listed, and that we could do that if at any point in time, I needed to have that done. I just could not wrap my brain around doing both of them at the same time. It just terrified me. The liver was terrifying enough.
So you opted to have the surgery separately. So you had your liver surgery first and then wait for a kidney. So in terms of being on the transplant list, were you looking for a living donor, or were you only on the deceased donor list?
Yeah, again, I'm really lucky that where I am, they do the living donor transplants, which I wanted to be able to do only because I do know that, having that option in the best case scenario, it is a better option because the testing that they can do, they know exactly what you're getting. So what I found out was I was on the list for a cadaver kidney. And apparently, I guess I was moved up. You get moved up because it was almost like I was put on the list in July. And since I passed up that opportunity, I wasn't taking one then. It's almost like you get extra points. I don't know exactly how it works, but I absolutely was looking for a living donor. And because I think I had something like 30 people come forward who offered the liver. So when it was time for me to look for a kidney, I was like, look, this one is way easier. It's way easier. You're like in and out, you have another kidney, you're good to go. So the other thing that my transplant center has, which is really cool, they have a program called Champion for Life. So they actually have an entire kind of like a person who helps anyone who is looking for a living donor advocate for themselves. So like and so you get a champion, you get a person who is going to help you do that. And they go through training. Yeah, I've seen it in other hospitals as well. It's really helpful because I know it's really hard for people to ask for that. And so to have someone who's doing it for you, especially when you're going through all of that, was really nice. So yeah, I had that for me.
It's really wonderful to hear that so many people came forward being willing to be a living donor for you. I mean, that really warms my heart to hear. And I just want to say a big shout out to all of those people, all of people that come forward to be a living donor. Honestly, I call living donors superheroes, and I just take this moment to applaud you and say you're wonderful people. So thank you to all living donors. I just wanted to give a shout out. So I know that you went on to have your kidney transplant. So how did that come about?
And once you start taking anti-rejection medication, your kidneys don't like that. So if they're already not doing well, yeah, they can go pretty quickly. So pretty fast. My creatinine was in the threes and then almost to four. So I was just literally just praying that I just did not want to go on dialysis. I just was, and I was really, really lucky because a friend of mine who came forward, and she actually works in healthcare, and she knows the I don't remember what they're called. She knows the robotic machines, like she works with. She's gotten them for her hospital, so she was really excited to be able to do that and actually have a robot be a part of the surgery. So yeah, by March of 2024, we it was scheduled and it went really well. It was such a different surgery than my liver transplant. I mean, shockingly so. You know, my husband had to sit and wait for myself and my daughter being in surgery all day, then goes to this 2-hour surgery for me. And I was awake and talking to them and just immediately felt it really did. It was an immediate change in how I felt. Besides the pain, I've been a completely different person since I got my new kidney. So
What was that change? How did you feel when you received your new kidney?
I think, first of all, the energy, like, honestly, again, there's healing after that, but to as soon as I was healed from it, to not have to take a nap in the middle of the day. I mean, that is the biggest difference. The energy, and also I was really, really restricted with sodium intake because, well, for my liver for sure, and then blood pressure with my kidneys. So to be able to not have to keep track of how many milligrams of sodium I was taking every drink and eat food, that alone was just like, it was the first time I felt somewhat normal. I mean, now listen, on the anti-rejection meds, there are things that you can't take, but to just have the energy, I'm a busy person. I love to be active and I wake up at, 5 o'clock in the morning. I just remember the first few times I was able to just do stuff all day long and not be tired was just like such an incredible feeling. And just, I was so grateful to that. And my kidney donor she's 47, 48 now, and she's an athlete. And she also like works out like crazy. I joke now because I'll be 56 in March. So I have a 23-year-old liver and a 47-year-old kidney. So I think that my age must be like, I'm not in the 50s anymore. Just that, I mean, really, and I will put this out there because I was told that polycystic kidney disease patients and PLD patients are the best people to get transplants because, for the most part, and obviously this is not for everyone, we are completely healthy other than these cystic organs. So when we get a new one, no one would ever know. I mean, I go out and play golf, I walk, I'm super active, and unless you saw my stomach and the handful of pills I take in the morning, you wouldn't know. So I will put that out there. I was not sick. Like, I had high blood pressure and I had some other things, but it was as soon as I got these organs, my labs right now as a 55-year-old woman look better than the average 55-year-old woman. So I feel better than I have, I mean, in 10 years. So it made a huge difference.
So in terms of your native kidneys, did they actually remove those? I'm assuming that they grew quite big because of the cysts. So were they still left there when you had your new kidney transplanted, or were they taken out?
Yeah, so that actually is like on a per person basis. So they want to know, like, first of all, if they're too big, then they do look at taking one or both of them out. Do they cause issues? Because sometimes cysts will like burst. I know people who have cysts and they burst and they're really painful. Luckily, again, because I'm so tall and I have a really long torso, they didn't really bother me. I mean, they would get sore every once in a while, but I didn't have the issues, so they didn't need to take them out. So when they do the kidney transplant, it's really fascinating. I was actually there when my friend went for her like medical workup, and they had, like the mannequin, but with the body parts. And so the doctor was able to be like, this is how we do it. They go through the front robotically, but your kidneys are in the back. So they kind of like move things around. So that's why their surgery is actually harder than ours, because mine, they just do a little incision and plop it onto the front of my stomach. So I have 3 kidneys. And what happens is, because the blood flow kind of stops going to those, they like die off and they shrivel up. And I actually have compared my MRIs from previously. And I mean, my abdomen with my liver and my 2 kidneys were just like, it was just all these white circles. And now I have like this beautiful, perfect, liver that's smooth and so pretty. And then you can kind of see but they're not, they've shrunk quite a bit. And then I have a pretty little kidney over here. So yeah, like I said, it's very much person by person basis. So I was really lucky that I didn't have to do that, because that's a harder surgery. That's why mine was like, I mean, it basically was just in a little incision here, and, that was it. It was much easier than I ever thought that it would be.
So you were very fortunate then that when they gave you the new kidney, and you said the blood flow was no longer going to your native kidney, so those have shrunk. So you really had a really good experience. And in terms of like the renewed energy and everything that it's brought to your life, not having to have these naps in the middle of the day that you said, because although you said you weren't ill, having to sleep during the day, ultimately it's due to having kidney disease. So I don't want anyone out there thinking, oh, I'm having to sleep and this means I'm not sick. We're not saying that at all.
Yeah.
We're saying that there's definitely different symptoms that people experience when they have kidney disease or go into kidney failure, but certainly not underestimating the impact that being tired to this level can have, because for some people, they may even lose their career as a result of that level of tiredness. So just putting it out there and being very clear that we know as kidney patients, it affects people very, very differently.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that I'm really lucky that I was working remotely. So I did get a medical accommodation. My job I'm able to do from the computer. So I'm very lucky that I work remotely full time. And thankfully I did, especially at that time, because I got like a comfortable recliner chair for my liver transplant. But that's where I would fall asleep. And I will say, I had high blood pressure. I was taking medication for that when I was in kidney failure, and swollen. I mean, I could see when it got really bad. I kept saying to my husband, don't you think that my face is puffy here? And it wasn't until after I got my kidney when I looked at my ankles for the first time and was like, my ankles look so skinny. And to take my socks off at the end of the day and have like those imprints. So I did have quite a few symptoms that I don't think that I realized until I was healthier. And then, so now it's like I take my socks off at the end of the night and I'm like looking, because the doctors, whenever they see me, they'll always like touch my skin and ask me about that. But I definitely had quite a few of those symptoms, but I think probably the puffiness and this literally falling. I mean, I would sit in that chair some days, 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, and I would have slept all night. And it was really the strangest thing when I was really close to when I got my creatinine. I just saw some people talking about this the other day. Mine never got up as high as a lot of people's get. Like mine got at the highest was 4.4 when I had my surgery. And now it sits at 1 is where mine sits. And my GFR is like 60 pretty much, which is just like, yeah. Mine is lower than like my stepmom who donated her kidney to my father. She's like, yours is lower than mine. I'm like, sorry. Yeah, and that's also really interesting. People's creatinine really varies after transplant too. I think younger people, sometimes I'm a little jealous. They'll be like, I have there's just like 0.8 or something. But some people ride at 1.57. So, again, I tell people you almost trade, because, there's side effects to meds that you take. In a way, you trade one set of problems for another. I would very much take mine that I have now. But it's not like you just get these transplants and you're just like, bye, thanks. I'm going to have a good life now. It's still, there's a lot that you still do.
So let's talk a little bit about that then, because we talk about the positive side of transplantation, and it is a positive thing. I mean, in your case, you never were on dialysis, but for those of us who are on dialysis, no longer having to do dialysis and have the restriction that goes along with dialysis. So there are many, many plus points to transplantation, and I will always be an advocate for transplantation and the difference it can make to people's lives. But also, I like to give a balanced picture. So what are the kind of challenges that you experience as a kidney transplant recipient? I know that when we're talking about this, I want to make it clear, this isn't to complain or to downgrade the gift that you've been given, but it's also just to be real and give a balanced picture so that when people are on the list waiting, they get a real picture of how things can be. So people aren't set up for failure. So when they get these challenges, it isn't so devastating because they didn't know that this could happen. So just to give this balanced picture, what are the kind of challenges that you experience after receiving the kidney?
I think probably my biggest challenge is that everyone in my family is a doctor. So I joke I play one on TV. I have been told I have a high medical IQ, which some doctors like and some doctors don't. But for me, I read a lot. I know I look at my labs before my doctors do. So after transplant, it's really busy and you're on all of these medications and you're trying to learn about the medications. You take them at certain times, you're getting these labs done. And it's just really scary because as a liver transplant, you're looking at your liver enzymes. As a kidney transplant, you just dial in at your creatinine and your FGR. You're not very good at seeing the whole picture of everything. And obviously that's where the doctors come in and they're much better at that, obviously. But I really struggled with, it's like you put so much energy into getting these things. And then once you're on the other side, you have a different team. I don't know what it's like there, but for here, my surgeons who performed my transplants are not my doctors. They did that. And then I saw them for rounds, like for 2 days, and then they peace out and you don't see them again. You have a whole different team in the clinic and they're the ones that take care of you. That was very confusing to me. I didn't understand that. And you have a whole team of people making decisions about your medication. The medications, the first year, you're just all over the place. And it's hard because you're watching your levels and you're looking at your numbers and it is a lot. And I think I just was frustrated because I would see something and someone wouldn't get back to me fast enough. And that was really hard. I don't have patience for that. So knowing that you're one of thousands of people probably going to this clinic, and not to say that I think that my stuff is more important than anyone else's, but it's scary. I mean, when you have things that feel like they're not right, you want help right away and you're just afraid. You don't want to go into rejection. You don't want to do anything to harm your organs. So it's a lot of that. There are foods that you can and can't eat and things that you have to avoid. And you just have to be really safe because you don't have an immune system. You can't be around people. And a lot of people have different ideas about that. And I got my stuff done. My liver was in 2023. There's COVID. So to be immunocompromised all of a sudden is just a different world. And you have to think about things much differently. I mean, I already was a germaphobe and now I am, if someone coughs near me, I'm sorry. I'm looking at them like, why don't you have a mask on? So there's just a whole other, you just kind of, but it gets better because I will say after my liver transplant, as time went on, I got much more comfortable with what I can and can't do and who I feel safe being around. So it's a lot though at first, just having to learn this new life that you didn't have before and, making sure that you have a mask with you for times where all of a sudden you might be in a really busy place, hand sanitizer, which I carry anyway, but it's just, you're trading a different set of concerns for those kinds of things that you start thinking about and focusing on.
So I'd imagine for different people, there's different challenges in the sense of you were saying that you have a different set of medical team now that you've received your transplant. And I guess for people like myself who are on dialysis, you're no longer at the dialysis center, you're no longer around the patients that you were around, the friendships and relationships that you built up there. And then having to start all over again, essentially, in building relationships with your new team, I can imagine that being quite a challenge for people, especially when you've been on dialysis for many, many years and you've known people for many, many years. And then overnight, you've got a new team. So from your experience of this transition from going from your first team to now your post-transplant team, what advice do you have for other kidney warriors out there who just received their kidney and you're now facing these new challenges, such as a new team, etc.?
So I think probably my family would say somewhat chronically online, mostly because I'm always looking up things. But I think you can find communities. You have to find what works for you. I learn a lot from places like Reddit and Facebook, but you also have to know a lot of people go to those places when they're having problems. So being able to find kind of that positive group, your support group. I have met quite a few people in the last few years through a transplant magazine, and we're all friends on Instagram. And I love it. And it's more than just transplant people, chronically ill people as well. So there's just something about we only understand what each other goes through. We know there is a woman who she had a heart transplant and she's a doctor and she posts really cool stuff. And she posted something the other day and it was that sound, it's the wait sound when you're waiting for someone at the hospital to answer the phone when you've called like the clinic or something. Everyone knows that. Like I think they all use that same sound. But it's just having those things in common with people, being able to talk. It helps you. You have to work for it because it's not easy. But there are lots of support groups depending on where you are and what you want to do. But you have to put some effort into it. But know that you're not alone. I know that a lot of people do struggle sometimes after their transplants with a number of different things. You want to make sure you have some support and I've seen a lot of people talk about how as much as they hated having to do dialysis, that's where their people were. And those nurses knew them and they met their group there. It is really strange to all of a sudden be like, okay, I don't know anyone in this office and you have to reestablish. And so, yeah, but I think find the places that work for you and understand the reasons why people are there. Because again, some people go to different forums because they're having issues or want to complain about things. That's not the best all of the time, but you can learn a lot. So there are times where you want to be like, is this normal? So that's helpful. But yeah, finding your transplant tribe is very important.
I like that. Finding your transplant tribe is important. I like that. That's almost a social media post within itself right there.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, you were diagnosed with ADPKD when you were 25 years old. You experienced many challenges, including liver failure, as well as going into kidney failure, having a liver transplant and a successful kidney transplant. Through everything that you've been through, the highs, the lows, all of the challenges, what is an important message that you want to share with the listeners out there?
I think, I hear all the time how strong I am, and people tell me what a badass I am. In my brain, my immediate thought is, what are my options? I'm the only one who's going to take care of myself. I have to do this for me, which is why, I didn't take no for an answer from many doctors. And as soon as I began the evaluation process, I remember I immediately got all of the appointments and got everything done, got the days off and got it all done immediately. And the people at the transplant center were like, we need to hire you to teach people how to do this. And I'm like, what do because they keep talking about, they need to make sure that you're compliant. That's one of the things. And I'm just like, do people not do this? How do you want to get a transplant and not be compliant and do the things that you need to? And that's just in my DNA to be a problem solver. And I want to live. So I did everything. I advocated for myself as much as possible. And I've been told over and over how that made a difference. The knowledge, how much time I spend learning about all of my labs and all of those things. I mean, if I didn't know that, who else? The doctors get busy, the coordinators get busy. Yes, everyone looks at it, but I have a gigantic team of people. I don't even see my regular doctors anymore. I see like the nurse practitioners for kidney and liver. So, I mean, there are probably 10 or 15 people that get looped into my labs. I don't know who takes the time to look at that now. So, but it starts from the beginning. I know it's scary. And I think it's really easy for some people to, and this is okay. We all should feel sorry for ourselves. This is terrible. It's not fair for any of us. I know life is not fair, but it's really unfair that we have to all go through all of these things. But give yourself a little bit of time to feel that way. You cannot give yourself a lot of time because guess what? No one else is going to fight for you like you're going to fight for yourself. And that is the best advice I can give. Learn as much medical stuff as you can, because again, in this day and age, you have access to all of your information. I go as far as taking my name off of my ultrasounds and CAT scans and MRIs, and I use AI to help me like understand things. And obviously, they're not giving me medical advice, but I need that sometimes because I want to be able to call my doctor and say, look, I have a question about this or this. I mean, I will actually now tell my doctors, this is how I feel, and really be in tune with yourself. Don't ever feel that you're being overdramatic, or you need to be intuitive about everything that you feel in your body. And don't ever feel like you're being a problem to anyone, because you have to just listen to yourself. And again, just advocate for yourself and your own health. And don't just think that they're the doctors that went to school and they can take care of everything because they're busy. They have a lot of patients. And I have amazing doctors, but every day I advocate for myself and make sure that I feel good, that my numbers, I'm taking the medicine, the right levels that don't make me feel sick, because I have argued with my doctors to not raise my medication levels sometimes because it doesn't make me feel good. So I fight for myself all the time. And so that's the best advice I could give to everyone out there with your health.
Advocacy is something I also feel really strongly about. As I've said many times before, you are the common denominator. You are the only person in every single one of your health appointments. So yes, listeners, totally in agreement with Jamie. Advocate for yourself. It is so important. And don't be afraid to challenge. Don't be afraid to ask questions. This is your health. This is your life. So yeah, I love that.
I wanted to add one other thing, because this has really been helpful for me in my medical journal. Document everything. I really, really recommend, especially if you have a smartphone, it's super easy. Any day you have some sort of symptom that seems out of the blue, mark it, put it in your calendar, and keep a running note of the questions that you have for your doctors and things that are going, any sort of symptoms, or anything that you think is going on, because I can't tell you how invaluable that information is, because I have printed out at one point 3 pages of documentations to show my doctors something that was going on with me, to be able to say, this isn't like, I'm done. We're not brushing this under the table anymore. I know that this is not normal. It was post-COVID stuff that I was dealing with. It was 3 pages of 2 years worth of information. And I was able to have that because I had the documentation. So I really think that it's another way of advocating for yourself. But remember, when things are going on, just make a little note of it, because there will be times where it'll be like, when was it that when did I have that weird feeling or whatever it is? It's really helpful to document everything.
So I know that you're active on social media. What are your handles for anyone that wants to give you a follow?
So I probably do. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. I have most of my medical transplant / chronically ill friends on Instagram. So I talk a lot there about what's going on. That's Finch Mod. I'll talk about yarn too. I knit a lot and love yarn. So I kind of joke that it's slightly unhinged. That's my ADHD. So, I talk about everything. I think it's really important to talk about things, because there's so many people out there who feel so lonely because they think they're the only ones going through this. So I love meeting someone like you who unabashedly talks about all of this, because I think it's so important. And as an educator, I've always said knowledge is power. And so that's why I think it's so important for us to talk about this all the time, because again, kidney disease is the silent killer. And people don't know this. And I can't tell you how many times I've met people who had no idea, just like you, that this is going on in their world. And all of a sudden, they join our little CKD tribe. So the more we talk about it, the more people will hear and hopefully know what to look out for, and maybe remember that it is important to go see their doctors, get your lab work done, especially as you get older. It's really easy to be able to see how healthy you are and what's going on. And you can't be afraid of it, because that just doesn't do anything for you. I wasted too many years being afraid of my health.
And as always, I will put the link to Jamie's social media in the description box. What is your final word of encouragement for the listeners?
So this one may resonate with you a little bit, but I just want people to know to not be afraid to ask the people in their lives to be a living donor, because I see, as someone who has received not one, But 2 living donor organs, it's because I asked. And you have to know that you won't make it through the evaluation process if you're pressured into doing it. They're very, very, it's a whole thing. But you never know who in your life, it could even be a stranger who might see you asking for that, who will come forward and it's been something they've always wanted to do. But you won't know unless you ask for it. And so I wish more people would put that out there. I know it's really hard and I know a lot of people can't do it, but I knew my chances would be better with a living donor organ. And so I just had to be vulnerable and do that. And I had people come forward I hadn't even talked to in years and years and years. And it was shocking to me. And I joke with everyone that I guess I must be a pretty nice person to have 30 people come forward who want to donate their liver to me. And that was really a moment where I was kind of like, that is really incredible. Oh, I'm going to get teary to have that kind of an impact on people where they would want to save my life. So ask. You need to ask to do that for yourself.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for your openness and your honesty in sharing your experiences. I know that this will help so many people out there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, please do share it with someone who may benefit. And remember to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. To stay connected and receive updates about new episodes, you can also join the email mailing list and the WhatsApp channel. You'll find the links in the episode description. Join me next time where I'll be speaking with a health professional for another insightful conversation to educate, empower, and inspire. Until next time, take care and choose to live.
Diary of a Kidney Warrior podcast in partnership with Kidney Care UK, sharing faith, knowledge, hope, and love.